Local productions seen on Delta College Public Media are made possible with support from viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Junia Doan's The Spark. Thank you for joining us. Today, I will be speaking with Josh Russell, Executive Director of the Gilmore Car Museum, located in Hickory Corners, Michigan. Welcome, Josh. So, Josh, I'm delighted to have the opportunity to talk with you about a wonderful find in Michigan, the Gilmore Museum. Tell us a little bit about its history and its breadth.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me on. The Gilmore Car Museum is, believe it or not, in Hickory Corners, Michigan, just outside of Kalamazoo, is the largest car museum in North America. So it has more than 400 cars and motorcycles displayed in world-class galleries in late 1800s, early 1900s historic barns, our giant heritage center, and even some reproductions of vintage dealerships. The 1949 Cadillac dealership houses the Cadillac LaSalle collection. A brick 1928 Ford dealership houses the Ford Model A collection. And we have a 1930s Shell station. It really is a spectacular 90-acre campus.
And they're in different buildings and different pavilions devoted to the LaSalle, Cadillac, motorcycles. Tell us about the different pavilions.
As you go through the museum, you start out in the main gallery, which right now is a presentation of every generation of Chevrolet Corvette from 1953 to current, from C1 body style to C8. And you go on from there to a 1920s and 30s gallery and an interactive area for kids with to be able to race cars and sit in cars and get photos in a DeLorean, like from Back to the Future. Then there's a 1950s and 60s gallery and a muscle car gallery. And you go on to early 1900s air-cooled Franklins, and then the Lincoln dealership and Museum of the Horseless Carriage, which is all pre-1916 horseless carriage cars, gas, steam, electric. And then on, as you mentioned, to Classic Car Club of America, Pierce Arrow, Model A, motorcycle. I mean, it's really... every building, every gallery that you walk into is a presentation from a different decade, a different era, and representation of different kinds of transport and travel, whether it's cars, motorcycles, boats, travel trailers. We have a little bit of everything out at the Gilmore.
And I understand you have car shows. What on a rotating basis do the different museums or different buildings offer?
Yeah, we have throughout the warm weather months, we have a different car show almost every single weekend. And well, it's a combination of car shows, boat shows, motorcycle shows, a vintage travel trailer rally for the first time this year. And in addition to that, different special events, Corks and Crafts, beer and wine and spirits festival. We have a Deutsche Marks Oktoberfest that we started this year, which was nearly 300 German cars and an Oktoberfest, environment with traditional German food and German beer. And it's each one of our partner museums. Everyone has a different weekend to celebrate their mark, their makes and models on the Gilmore campus, and it's a chance for them to host and for us to host, a different type of show every weekend to bring different types of enthusiasts. So that goes from cars to motorcycles to even our new winter motoring meet this year, which we'll do again, which brought out 70 different vintage snowmobiles and Model A's and Model T's on tracks and skis in 2 feet of snow out on our campus.
Is there ever an opportunity to get in and drive one of those vehicles?
Yes, one of our most popular programs, which is everything that we're trying to do these days, is really to give someone that seat of the pants experience and be more immersive. So We actually have a Model T driving experience program where we have some instructors and teach folks to drive Ford Model Ts, and we have more than 2 miles of paved roads on the campus. So you actually get to learn to drive Ford Model Ts, and we teach about 850 people a year to do that. And then 4 days a week during the warm weather months, we have our Ride the Classics program. So that's where we have as many as 5 or 6 different cars from different eras, many of them open air cars, convertibles, and just give free rides to guests who are there visiting the museum for the day, so they can experience what it's like to ride in a car from the 20s, the 30s, the 50s, the 60s, and all the way through.
How does a visitor find out the right times to come for the Model T training?
Yeah, the best way to find out about all the happenings at the Gilmore Museum is at our website, which is gilmorecarmuseum.org. We also update things on the Facebook page at Gilmore Car Museum on Facebook weekly, and that includes this past year we've been doing recaps of almost every single event that we have, and even the popular Wednesday night cruise-ins that now are during the warm weather months have attracted as many as 1,000 cars on a Wednesday night. We usually do video recaps and provide updates on current, this week's, and upcoming events and shows at the museum.
Is there a golden age in terms of years for automobile design and separately motorcycle design?
Boy, that's it is all subjective. I'm sure that people who are huge fans of things from the 1950s and 1960s will argue for that era. There are others I know. Even our Classic Car Club of America Museum on the campus is dedicated to 1948 and earlier coach-built luxury cars that absolutely have beautiful designs. So they advocate for probably the 1930s. And Art Deco styling and that as kind of the golden age era. I think that there are several. I think that we have appreciation. I know I have appreciation for all of them. And when you come to the Gilmore Museum, that's the nice part, is it's not just one era that's being represented. It's not just one, type of car or make of car. You really can explore and see all those and see how art and design influenced the manufacture, the design, the manufacture, engineering, and production of automobiles through each of the eras.
Interesting. So it's known that men have just a great love affair, so to speak, with cars. And I have a love affair with design in all products. So what satisfaction does good design give these aficionados? Is it less the design from the outside and more the function inside, what it was known for?
Well, as an old car enthusiast, as the owner of cars from the 30s, 60s, and 90s, and then up to current, there's no arguing that a lot of times the cars that are engineered, the ergonomics, how they perform in terms of function, they're very capable. But boy, there is something about the either the muscular or sultry lines of different cars when it comes to the design. The aesthetic plays such an important role, and I think for the car person, it's as much an expression of style and what you're interested in. Or when you start talking about hot rods and customs, which I'm really into, that's a complete kind of artistic expression or self-expression of your personality or what your interest is. And it could be flowing lines and beautiful, or it could be, menacing and powerful and tough. So I think even more than the function of it, there's an appreciation among older car lovers about, the style. And you don't get that in a lot of the cars today that are just primarily developed in wind tunnels to meet EPA standards and hit fuel mileage standards and do some of the more functional things that they're required to do, as opposed to having big fins and chrome and beautiful lines.
Yeah. No style, ugly style. I find that it's kind of interesting to me that, say, the 50s, I think, we had Technicolor cars of, aqua and yellow and red. And I look around cars now and they're white and sort of grayish, blondish, whatever, and, or dark, whatever, black, blue, something. And I asked, does it reflect the times, or is it just, I don't mean to say style, but changes in style?
It may be. It may be. It does make me wonder. I mean, we did go from, right, Henry Ford, who originally, just because of how quickly the paint would dry on the production line, you could have any color you wanted as long as it was black. And then we did enter
Yes.
that era where in the Lincolns, in the customs, that era of the classic car, the luxury car, that the whole color palette was opened up in terms of the colors of vehicles, and then on into, like you said, the 50s and 60s and even the 70s. We have some amazing color combinations or colors on cars from the muscle car era in the 70s in our muscle car gallery. But it is, the current age and era is toned down to your beiges and tans and blacks and whites, and but you don't have to look too far. Again, at hot rods and custom cars, and that's where people, I think, are have some more of the splashy color combinations and color palette in what they're producing to customize things for themselves, so they do stand out a little more.
I once sat next to a GM guy on a plane, and I said years ago, and I said, "How come you don't make more interesting designs of your cars? Look back to the earlier times." And he sort of looked down his nose at me and he said, "You're a niche market." And I thought, okay, so maybe it's the things that American like. But I've long thought products that are designed, this is too loose a statement, but products for the mass market could use a little design flair in a lot of areas. How did you get interested in cars?
So I ever since I was a kid, and then through high school and on into college, just enjoyed working on cars, learning about cars. I quickly got into kind of hot rods and a hack amateur racer for a little while, and then wound up in my career working for a company that makes antifreeze and brakes, and then running marketing and motorsports for those two companies, and then going on to work across NASCAR and IndyCar and NHRA drag racing and some other sports marketing. And then, the opportunity opened up here at the Gilmore Museum for me a year ago, and it's like being a kid in a candy store a little bit.
Looking forward, are there virtual tours of the museum at this point?
So there aren't virtual tours that are online. It's one thing that we're talking about and looking at. Our display inside the museum, we're also adding there's some of the displays that you'll see already that have QR codes that can launch videos that you scan with your phone. It can launch videos and take you to links and sites that give you more information about the vehicles. We don't really have a full, kind of walking tour that's virtual at this point, but a lot of the content you can see either on the website or even on YouTube. So, for example, Matt Murray, a friend of mine at Iron Trap Garage, has a YouTube channel with more than 100,000 followers. He did 5 different episodes about the Gilmore Museum, about the experiences, Model T driving experience, walking tour, and all those are available online to check out.
Are you investigating AI? Every place I read says it's going to change everything.
Yeah, we are. We've had a really ambitious year this year, and with all of the car shows and the special events that you had mentioned, and now we've got a winter wonderland, winter drive-through and walk-through lights experience that we're preparing for the holiday season. So that's one of those things that we intend to focus on here over the winter months. But there's no doubt that the technology, AI, will be part of what we're doing in the future. We already have a virtual reality exhibit or programming that's going to be part of what we roll out here in I think the next year or so.
Who do you see as your audience participants, and how does it vary by event?
Wow, that's a great question. It absolutely varies by event, right? There are some particular cars that seem to have an older following, an older audience, or eras of cars, as you know, you might think. And then we have younger folks who come out for typically younger folks who come out for things like the Relics Riot, Hot Rod and Custom Show. And then we have a range of ages of folks who have come out for not only car shows, but we have concerts at the Gilmore Museum this year as well. We had Kalamazoo Symphony Orchestra played 3 outdoor shows, one with Branford Marsalis this year that brought a range from symphony fans to younger folks and young families. And then, we had a Van Halen tribute band and a full makeup Kiss tribute band. So we have programming for everyone, and depending on the event, we get different types, different ages of folks out. But there are a lot of families, and then multi-generational, parents bringing children, grandparents bringing grandchildren, and they can kind of share the experience and talk about vehicles maybe that somebody in the family used to own, or that they rode in when they when they were growing up. And it's really kind of a nice place to explore some nostalgia and have kind of a walk through American history.
So you have a diner that operates in the summer. Tell us about that.
We do. It's a 1941. It's called a Silk City Diner. It was manufactured in New Jersey, and then it lived most of its life operating as a diner in Meriden, Connecticut. And about 10 years ago, it was transported, relocated to the Gilmore Museum and restored. And out of that diner every day during the warm weather months, we serve hot dogs and chocolate malts and frozen custard and lunch and lunch items. And it's a really neat. It's stepping into a time capsule and feeling like you're at a diner in the 40s and 50s, but right here in this day and age in Hickory Corners, Michigan.
So going back to design for a moment, is there a machine or a way a visitor can design their own personal car, like a few fins or hot rod or 3 wheels or colors or anything like that, just to acquaint people with design options and with the resistance of wind and this and that?
On the design side of things, there's a great new kind of interactive exhibit that you step into, and it shows you how the design process worked for coach built in classic cars from that 1930s era. And so that's in a brand new 10,000 square foot expansion in the Classic Car Club of America Museum, one of our 7 partner museums on the campus. And then for hands-on in our new the Dunning interactive exhibit area, kids have the chance to use Legos and Lego type pieces to build their own cars on an assembly line, and then to also prepare and build race cars and run those down kind of a Pinewood Derby type style track that has times and everything. So a big part of what we're trying to do is have experiences and some hands-on experiences for everyone.
So one opportunity is with Legos, and one opportunity is like on a computer screen. Did I understand
exactly.
correctly or not?
That's right. Yep. Projection and kind of a history of design and design influence on vehicles. So
I'm very interested also in function. And when my mother was alive, it was so difficult for her to get in and out of a car. And I remember Ford had a demo car where instead of being hinged in the front doors, it was hinged in the back. So they opened, I guess, to your left. Anyway, I hope you understand what I mean. And
I do. I think we'd call them.
But as far as I know, it never went into production.
I'm not sure I'm not sure if I know exactly what you're talking about, but if I'm
in other words, right, the doors differently.
Yeah, reverse, and they would call them suicide doors. So in fact, those did make production. If we're talking about the same thing, in mid 1960s Lincolns and a handful of other cars, and I think even some of the earlier Ford coupes, the door was reversed to make it easier entry.
So one of since I entertain myself with the design and questions and so forth, I don't think cars are made for tall people. The top where the windows, hit the roof are just, you have to duck and crouch and this and that. And I understand it's better for aerodynamics, but it's not good for function. And I really like what Tesla did, which is on the X to flip up the back doors. I think that's wonderful for sick people who have broken legs or elderly or something that makes access, it seems to me, somewhat easier. Am I mistaken with that?
No, I think that you're right. It's as the needs of current day Americans and people around the world, and how tall we are, how big we are. I mean, things are changing. Things are changing in the design process and in the manufacturing to better accommodate all of our needs, and those of us who have special needs or again situations where you need easier access and ingress and egress from a vehicle. I think that's all happening. To help reinforce, and while it feels like maybe haven't been as attentive, what's interesting is, because I get to do it pretty regularly, climb into a 1930s car or a 1920s car, and you might actually have an appreciation for how far we've come in terms of having vehicles that are a little bit bigger to accommodate 6 feet tall and taller type folks, because it doesn't feel very comfortable when you're trying to get two people into a Model A coupe from the late 20s or early 30s. I can tell you that.
Well, carrying it a little further, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't understand why the seat can't swivel out and you could sit down inside and flip the seat back into position. Now, I understand insurance and blah, 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 but there's a lot to be done in design and function. But when someone brought a car from some of the original builders, do you think they had, or do you know if they had the option of a little more of this or a little less of that, or take it or leave it?
I think there was a lot more, I believe that there was a lot more freedom and creativity before some of the safety standards that went into effect. And when you talk about actually the swiveling front seat, I'm fairly certain that Ford Thunderbirds had that in the early to mid 1960s as a feature, a seat like that would swivel so you could sit into it as you enter the door, and then the seat would actually swivel into place. So I think some of the challenges, not just with some of the things that you've talked about with ergonomics but with design, is there are a lot more mandatories and requirements in terms of safety and fuel economy, and engineering and systems that need to be incorporated. Everything from airbags to anti-lock brakes to stability control, that just require and impact zones and crash protection, that there are just a lot more, there are many more mandatories when folks are trying to develop a car, a platform, and then also have it be in an appealing package or design.
In your view, do you feel the regulations or requirements are perhaps too many? Could they be pruned back and still keep the safety and whatever the government seeks and the companies seek?
It's hard for me to say. There's no arguing when you look at some of the crash test videos or aware of, there are many fewer deaths now than there were, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, with automotive related accidents. And so the safety is definitely kind of proven out, but I still feel like there should be room for, those of us who are enthusiasts to be able to, work on your cars, customize your cars, have that kind of self-expression, because it really is, as far as I'm concerned, a lot of these are a rolling sculpture and rolling, artwork, and it's an expression of art and craft when you're working on a car and then driving it and enjoying it.
I knew a man who did collect cars and had special garages, and he said they had to be driven and whatever. Do you do that with your cars?
Yeah, we do. It's difficult to keep up with all of them, but fortunately, with our partner museums and with all of the events and activities that we have, the cars really get exercised, is what we call them. So they're routinely on a schedule, being brought out of the museum and started and driven. Those that can be driven, there are some that are super low mile, very rare examples, like the lowest mileage Tucker that's in existence happens to be in the at the Gilmore Museum, and that one does not get driven. But the rest of them are cared for, and we try to make sure that they are in running condition and can be used and enjoyed. And either when it makes sense, have rides given in them, or at our Congress of Motor Cars and Family Day, which is a 1942 and earlier show. It's really neat to see all the earlier cars out and running and driving and giving rides to guests when they're there for the show.
Thank you so very much for participating in the Spark. I've learned something that the best products, I don't want to say that and insult current automobile manufacturers, but the best product solve a problem with beauty. And I see why they're celebrated in museums now. So I greatly appreciate your being part of the Spark. And I say to the audience, remember, go out and do something kind for someone you know and someone you don't know, and do it again every day for at least a week and probably a month. And thank you for tuning in. And I will see you next time. The Gilmore Museum is in Hickory Corners in Michigan. Look them up. They're a fascinating place and certainly a wonderful summer opportunity, and as well as winter car shows and driving a Model T. I'm interested in that. See you next time. Thank you.
To contact Junia, send her an email at juniadownsthespark@gmail.com. For more information, program schedules, and news about future guests, go to www.juniadownthespark.com. Thank you for joining us. See you next time on Junia Doan's The Spark.
Local productions seen on Delta College Public Media are made possible with support from viewers like you. Thank you.